What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the All Things Liverpool show with me, Anish Dogra. Another interesting week to say the least. One that's obviously been a lot better compared to what's happened in the last couple of matches against, well, you know what happened last week and against Forest. But a good win in midweek against Napoli. One where I wasn't really too surprised, really, that we were going to win the match. Such as our performances lately. You know, we go up against Manchester City, the best team in the world, and put in one of the best displays of the season and win the match. Then we go up against Forest and Leeds, the two worst teams in the league, and then lose those. And then coming up against Napoli, the most informed side in Europe and the most free scoring side. You know, before the game on Tuesday night, they scored 20 times in the Champions League in 5 matches. So a very free scoring outfit. And then from our point of view, we produced a very good performance and got a good win. So an interesting result. One we'll obviously get into in greater detail as the show goes on. And of course, we'll be talking about the match on Sunday against Spurs. A really big game. Now, of course, just a few weeks away before the Premier League comes to a halt for the World Cup. So Tottenham this week, and then ending off with Southampton next Saturday. So really important just to try and get 2 wins. Right now it doesn't really matter where we are in the league table. It's just about getting the results and points on the board, because later on in the season, the 3 points that we could pick up on Sunday and next Saturday could be crucial, depending on what our aims are for the second half of the season. Without further ado, we'll be starting off with the Napoli match. It was a game where I think it was almost a perfect kind of match for us, because obviously going into it there was no jeopardy whatsoever. It didn't matter if we had won 3-0 or lost 3-0. We were going to finish second no matter what. There was obviously the one small permutation that had we won by 4 goals or more, we would have finished top, but that was always unlikely given the quality of Napoli and how good they are defensively. And I actually thought they were very good against us. Were difficult to break down. Were very energetic. Anytime our back four had the ball, whether it was Konate or Van Dijk, Robbo or Trent, they constantly tried to press us. Whether it was from Osimhen up top, Politano on the right, or Kvaratskhelia, I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's a very difficult one to pronounce, but the guy on the left wing for Napoli, who is absolutely amazing. And I think one we'll talk about a bit more in a moment or so. They were really good up front, causing a lot of havoc and pressing from the front, which is of course the blueprint now to be successful in any match, and obviously to try and win things. In midfield, Zambo Gisa, Zielinski, and I think it was I can't remember one of the player in midfield, but overall Napoli were a very well knit unit, and that's why they've obviously finished top of their group, why they were going to finish top no matter what happened at Anfield, and also why they're dominating in Serie A right now. 12 matches played, won 10, drawn 2, scored. I think I mentioned it in the last show, but they scored a bucket load of goals. I think they're averaging nearly 3 a match or something like that. So a wonderful outfit, and you can see why they are a really good team and why they have so many good players. But from my point of view, and going back to the original point, it was a good match to play because, after the disappointment on Saturday, losing at home to Leeds, you can always lose to a low side in any kind of fashion. And in any way, but losing at Anfield is obviously a lot more painful given our record. Van Dijk obviously losing his 70-match unbeaten run, and in that game as well, I think we pretty much dominated them. I actually had a look back at the highlights, and the Leeds winner came from their second meaningful attack. The other one was when they had a counter attack and Bamford couldn't control it. But yeah, Leeds a poor result, and Napoli was a team that you wanted to face purely because it's a top opposition. And if you look at the Champions League this season, we've been near perfect. 15 points, and even though we finished second, we've accumulated more wins and more points than any of the other English clubs. I think City finished second on 14, I think. No, they finished top in their group, but they had 14 points. Chelsea at the similar number, I think 12 or 13. I think maybe 11. Tottenham finished on 11 as well. So in Europe, we're a different outfit. It's just there's no real debate in that. I think everyone has known even before under Rafa Benitez and in Klopp's first few years at the club that we were always a team to be feared in Europe because of Anfield, because of how our fans are so motivated to create a hostile atmosphere in the ground and to give our team the extra support. And it paid off again on Tuesday night. So a really good performance, and one where there were a lot of good individual players. I thought Konate coming back into the team was wonderful. One who's clearly talented. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He kept Osimhen quiet for most of the match, if not all of it. Was assured, was calm in his play. I loved how he strode forward whenever he had the opportunity. That was really, really good. Something Jean Matip does quite a lot and does to a really good effect. So Konate doing that, showing he's got the confidence and the ability to do so was really, really good. I think Tsimikas came in at left back again. Whenever we talk about Tsimikas versus Robertson, that debate, it's a win-win either side because both are at the top of their game. Tsimikas in the end producing 2 assists, the 2 goals coming from the same side off the corner, and putting in some really good deliveries throughout the game. So really good from him. Trent okay defensively. Again, coming up against Kvaratskhelia. Any right back will have a tough time against him. There are a few moments where he nutmegged Trent, showed unbelievable skill, power, pace, but I actually thought Trent dealt with him very, very well. Stood firm, stood tall, tried to make himself as difficult as possible to beat, and in the end, I don't think there were many clear-cut opportunities that came from that side. So a good performance from him, and again, I think he put on a few really, really good passes, as we all expect for him to do so. And then in midfield, Fabinho was a bit better than what he was against Leeds, and that was good to see. Thiago putting on an absolute clinic in terms of his passing. Again, no surprise about that. And then in terms of the midfield and the forward line, I thought Salah was okay in parts, did what he did best and put the ball in the back of the net. Funny enough, I think he's actually gone under the radar quite a little bit because in his last 8 or 9 matches, he's got as many goals. So he's clearly back to goal scoring away. So he might not be playing to the absolute best and playing to the standard he was in the first half of last season. But the way he's getting goals is all that matters. And that's what he's in the team for. That's what he's been doing for the last 4 or 5 years at Liverpool. And it was good to him to see him get on the score sheet again. Also making him the top scorer in the Champions League so far this season. So a good display from him. Nunez, when he came on, instant impact. Again, someone who I actually love watching him right now. I think for any Liverpool fan, for all of us, I think he's the one we're most excited about because you don't know what you're going to get. He reminds me of Suarez when he first came to the club back in 2011. Some unbelievable performances, some great pieces of skill, couple of goals here and there, a couple of assists, a real handful for the defense. And he might miss chances, he might spoon a couple of opportunities, but the fact that he's there, he's in the area, he's causing havoc will mean that he's going to be involved in more goals than not. And that's now 7 for him this season in all competitions. And I honestly think he could easily get 20 in all comps, which will be, for a guy who's played, well, we mentioned this before, but only played one proper season at the highest level with Benfica last season. And coming into a new league, a tough league with one of the biggest clubs in the world, having that pressure, price tag, of course, and of course, the fact that he doesn't know English and all of those factors. But to see him gel in so well, including that red card as well, which is obviously his own fault, but recovering from that setback and really showing strides, it's wonderful to see. And he's one where we're really excited about. I'm very much excited to see how he progresses. And if he's already doing what he is now, there's only one way he can go, and that is up. Touch wood. So great performance from him when he came up from the bench. Firmino was good again in moments, lovely bits of skill here and there. And one who I actually was quite pleasantly surprised with was Curtis Jones. Again, I talked about it in the preview show last week, where Jones is someone who I am fond of. Of course, he's a Scouser, and when you have a Scouser in your team, like Trent, you want them to do well because they're part of your club. They came from your academy, and you want them to succeed. Of course, it's a difficult one to really talk about. You have the fans on Twitter who might look at it more objectively and think that he might not be good enough, which they do have a case. Of course, Twitter reactions are very harsh, let's say, and they do kind of overreact. I feel with a lot of things. But he plays for Liverpool. There's a reason why he is There's a reason why he is in the team and why Klopp puts him into the team and why Gerrard rated him so highly when he was in the academy. And that is because he has talent. There is something there that could make him a very good player. Even if you talk about, just as a quick side note, if you talk about some of the fringe players and those who haven't come to fruition, really, like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, the reason why they came to Liverpool was because there is talent there, and you can see there is something about them, and it's the same with Curtis Jones. So his performance on Tuesday night was good in parts. Again, building up to his fitness now. That's a couple of matches he's now played in a row, and in a variety of positions as well, we should add. Against Forest, he was playing in that midfield double pivot alongside Fabinho. Tuesday night, he was on the left-hand side of the front four. And again, being played in all sorts of positions. Of course, I think he would prefer to play in that number 8 box-to-box kind of position long-term. But if he can play this well in a variety of different positions and adapt to it and learn more side of that game, then he could be a really, really good player, and it will suit him well for the rest of his career, if it's at Liverpool or even if it's at a different club. So good moments from him. There was a couple of nice pieces of skill and a little bits of play. So overall, I thought he was okay. Wasn't terrible, wasn't amazing, but it was a step in the right direction, and that's all we can hope for him. Now, obviously, 3 more matches before the World Cup starts. I doubt he'll feature or he'll start at least against Tottenham, but the Cup game next week, maybe even Southampton, the following match, will be opportunities for him. And the biggest thing as well is that when the World Cup breaks, is that he will have that month with the first team training. Of course, there will be a decent amount of players who will be staying back with the first team. The likes of Gomez, most likely, Konate, Joel Matip, Milner, Salah, of course. Diaz, hopefully he'll be back by then. And I think from what I've been seeing and reading, he's actually making quicker progress than expected, which is fantastic. So great from him, and hopefully one way he'll keep on going forward. Of course, in terms of the goals, it was actually quite pleasing to see the way we finished those chances, because set pieces, when you're not playing well and when you're not free-flowing or carving the opposition apart, things like set pieces are so important, because when you got quality from the dead ball situation, like we do with Trent, with Tsimikas, Robertson, who can put in good balls into the box, then you got to really utilize that. And with the team that we have players who can obviously get their head on the ball. Van Dijk, Konate, Henderson, of course, is a pretty tall person. Fabinho, Nunes, of course. So it's really worth utilizing that. And against Forest, where we had about 3 or 4, even 5 clear-cut chances from set pieces, I think I talked about it after that match, where Van Dijk genuinely could have gone home with the match ball. And we didn't utilize any of those. But on Tuesday, we did so, and that was very pleasing to see. The first one from Nunes, keeper makes the save, doesn't do very well in clearing it away, and then Salah converts on the second chance. And again, similar with Van Dijk for the second goal, and Nunes reacts. Of course, the keeper doesn't do great on both occasions. I think he should either try hold that or tip it over the bar, push it wide, do whatever, but he puts it back into the danger zone. And players like Salah, like Nunes, they will gobble those chances up every single day of the week. It's their bread and butter. They will always eat those opportunities and take them away. So good from our point of view that we made the most of the set pieces, got the win. And again, we talked about this on so many occasions in the past, in previous shows, where we hope that this will turn a corner for us. I think we all thought that was going to be the case in the week where we beat Rangers 7-1, City 1-0, and West Ham 1-0. But then, of course, we had the setback. And then we've had the toing and froing since then. Lost to Forest, but then beat Ajax. Lost to Leeds. Now we've beaten Napoli. So you hope that again, it's a kind of a bit of a broken record. That you hope that it's a springboard to better results and 3 wins now, where we can hopefully get 6 points in the Premier League and be in the next round of the Cup. Even though I actually think that if we lost on Wednesday night, long term, it might suit us not having those extra games in the second half of the season. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we were to lose against Derby next Wednesday night. But that's another story. But yeah, a good result against Napoli, 15 points out of 18. Really, really good stuff. And of course, we'll now await the draw on Monday, which will be very, very exciting. And just quickly looking at the Champions League table, so how it finished up elsewhere, which I'll quickly share with you now. So looking at the tables, we have it here. Right, I think you should be able to see that any second. Let me see if it's working. Cool, here we go. All right, so yeah, we finished obviously in Group A, 15 points. A good record in the end. Looking at 17 goals in 6 matches, that's nearly 3 a match, which is good. 6 goals conceded, again, very pleasing. Quite honestly, and it's quite funny as well. You're looking at our Champions League form versus Premier League form. We played 6 matches in Europe and 11 or 12 in the Premier League. And more wins in the Champions League and more goals and obviously less conceded, more clean sheets as well, I think. So it shows obviously that our league form is really, really poor and is the reason why we are mid-table right now. But it also shows why we are so good in Europe and why no one will want to face us in the Champions League. Finalists 3 times out of the last 4 or 5 seasons under Jurgen Klopp. Unbelievable performances in that time. You're looking at obviously Barcelona, the highlight one, but even Bayern Munich last season, Inter Milan was very, very good, and many other occasions. Roma, of course, Man City in our debut season under Klopp. So the Champions League is clearly, I think, one where the players are very much eyeing up. I think they probably realize the league title might be a stretch too far to show that consistency for the next 24, 25 games. But in the Champions League, you play far fewer matches, and with Anfield, with the power that we can use from that ground, you can almost end the tie in one match. If you were to win a tie 2-0 at home, that's effectively game over, because if you were to lose 3-0 at their ground, then that shows how poor of a side you are. But even though Liverpool aren't great right now, losing 3-0 just doesn't seem very likely, no matter how bad things are in the current moment. So Champions League, obviously, is a good result and finishing second. And then in terms of our following group, so we could, of course, get Porto, which will be fantastic. Diaz, of course, will be going back to his old club. And just in general, I think we all know how Porto are against Liverpool. They are our whipping boys. For us, of course, we normally have trouble against some teams in Europe. Napoli, of course, for example, Real Madrid, who are our bogey teams, but Porto are definitely ours, because they just, they never stand a chance. Poor guys, whenever we play them. Obviously, in the season where we got to the final and lost the first time round, we won 5-0. I think last season we had them in our groups. Again, won very comfortably. I think it was like 5-1 away and 2-0 at home. And in the season we did win the Champions League, it was a 6-1 aggregate score in the knockout stages. So getting Porto would be nice, but it's also a reason, and in fact probably a reason why I actually wouldn't mind if we avoided them, because the problem with us this season, and I think it's quite easy to understand after the amount of games we played, is complacency. Because you see our Champions League group stage when it matters, because in the Champions League you've got to get wins as soon as possible, because you don't have enough time to turn it around. And when it comes to it, you can see our form right there: 5 wins in a row and winning all but 1 match. And in the league this season, when you look at some of the big results and some of the really good results we had this season, Manchester City, a game where we had to really get up for it and be our absolute best. And if we did that, then we had a chance of winning the game, and that's exactly what happened. But Then, of course, you look at the flip side, and the reason why we lost to Leeds and to Forest, drawn to Fulham and Everton and Brighton, etc., was because we were complacent and we didn't take the opposition correctly. We underestimated them, and that's why we got the results out that we did. So, if we were to play against Porto, of course, you expect Liverpool to win, and very much so. But because of how we are and with our complacency right now, which is something that Klopp needs to obviously get rid of as soon as possible, then Porto could easily beat us, and it would obviously be a disastrous result if that were to happen. But on the face of it, Porto, you would not mind them whatsoever, and it would be a good draw. Bayern Munich, that's another team you could face, and one where it's obviously very, very frightening. I mean, just look at that result. Look at that. Those readings: 6 matches, 6 wins, 18 goals, 2 conceded. They are wonderful. They've always been a top team in Europe, and obviously with Mane there now, he took a little bit of time to settle in, but I think now he's showing why he's one of the best in the world. Credit James Redmond. I'm sure some of you know who he is. But yeah, Mane in the team and the standard they have it in that squad, even without Lewandowski this season, there is still a lot of quality in and around that squad with Gnabry, with Sane, Muller, of course, a wonderful player, Goretzka, Kimmich, and Neuer in goal as well, Alphonso Davies at left back. So Bayern would be an absolute mission if we were to face them, but we also had them in 18-19, where we finished second, they finished up, and we all knew what happened then. So again, it would be a very tough task, but one where you don't expect Liverpool to have 0% chance of qualifying, such as Liverpool in Europe. So that would be okay there. Group T, we can't face anyone because in the round of 16, you are unable to face the same side that are from the same nation. So Tottenham would be ruled out. Chelsea the same in Group E as well. And then Group F will be the next possible opponent, and Real Madrid. And for me, that is one where I'm more afraid of than Bayern Munich. Not because of the fact of how good Madrid are. I mean, looking at their record, not as good as Bayern's. They scored 3 less goals, had an easier group with Leipzig, Shakhtar, and Celtic. Conceded 4 more goals, and obviously lost a match right there. They lost to RB Leipzig in match day 5, Timo Werner getting a goal, which is good for him, of course. But yeah, Real Madrid, again, like I mentioned about Napoli being our bogey team and Porto being there, but Liverpool's bogey team, Real Madrid are very much ours. I mean, looking at the final last season, one where we deserved to win it, there was no denying that. What the only difference was that Real Madrid had one counter-attack, they took it, and they scored from it, and they won it. And Thibaut Courtois had the best game of his career. That's the only thing that stopped us winning the European Cup last season. But even in past seasons, of course, we all remember the Karius final where he made the mistakes. But even then, Ramos injuring Salah, that pretty much got rid of our entire goal threat, really. The season Salah was having, he was the best player in the world at the time in terms of his form. Then him going off made a big impact, and then obviously Karius making the mistakes. And even a couple of seasons ago in the COVID year, we drew to them in the quarterfinals, lost 3-1 in their ground. I didn't have many complaints about that result, but it was a similar case in the final, in the second leg of the quarterfinals, where Courtois was unbelievable on that occasion. He kept the clean sheet, and we had more than enough chances to have won 2-0. And at the time, the away goals rule would have stood. So if we had won that 2-0, we would have qualified and would have been deserved winners, really. But Courtois was unbelievable again. So Real Madrid, they don't scare me as much on the face of it. Even though they do have Benzema, the best player in the world, the Ballon d'Or winner, of course. Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, Luka Modric is still unbelievable, but they are a bit weaker. They've lost Casemiro. Tchouaméni, of course, is their new DM, and obviously one we wanted. But you have to think they're a bit weaker. And if we were to get them again, I would hope that we can give ourselves the best chance of qualifying. But one out of the 3 teams that I mentioned so far, where I'm not, where I would be a bit more frightened of facing, out of Benfica, out of Porto and Bayern Munich. Then Group G, of course, can't face Man City, finished top, and then that leaves Group H, which again benefits us greatly. PSG didn't finish top, based on goal difference. So Benfica winning 6-1 in their last match against Maccabi Haifa. So yeah, you can see there the goal scorers. And for us, that obviously meant PSG finished second. Just looking at their goal difference off. Actually, how did they finish? Okay, I don't think we have enough time to go into why they finished second when they had the same goal difference and goals against and for. Maybe it came out to a head-to-head record, which is probably likely. But anyway, PSG finishing second obviously bodes well for us because coming up against that team, and I do think PSG are genuine contenders for the Champions League this season. It pains me to say it, they're Man City. I think all of Europe unites them not winning it because of how much money they spend and the way they've ruined football kind of with the transfers and wages and all of that really. So PSG with that lineup of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe is very, very frightening and one where it's really, really, really good. So yeah, not facing them is obviously a big plus, and avoiding them for the time being would be very good. So Benfica, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and Porto. Any one of those 4 teams will be very welcome. And I think what the biggest thing of all of that is the fact that we are playing at Anfield first, and it gives us the potential to really stamp our authority. As I mentioned briefly, we have the power and the capability of ending the tie in the first leg, winning 2-3, 4-0. And being at Anfield first, I have no doubt the crowd will be unbelievable. I almost assume that there'll be a coach greeting, which is obviously something we do in Europe, where we line up the streets with our flares and pyro and make a great atmosphere. And it's something I fully expect Liverpool fans to do, no matter who we face, or especially if we face Bayern or Real Madrid. So having that impact at Anfield, being on the front foot, could definitely bode well for us, and one where it will be a wonderful tie and hopefully set us on our way to try and winning the Champions League this season. So anyways, that is all for the Champions League build-up and review. It'll be exciting to see who we face on Monday, and hopefully, no matter who we get, it'll just be a really great tie. And of course, when the Champions League does resume again in February, more importantly is that we will obviously have Jota back, we will have Diaz back. Players will be fully fit and fresh, and those who are going to the World Cup will be back and completely fine. And above all of that, of course, is that we do have a new midfielder in the team, at least one, because obviously that is something that's big on our agenda right now. And just quickly reading on the latest rumors this week, I think there's been a lot of noise around Declan Rice, Moises Caicedo. The latter, especially, I think he's the heaviest link so far to come into January. But of course, Rice next summer possibly, Enzo Fernandez, and of course Jude Bellingham will continue to be linked. So hopefully, yeah, we do get one of those 4 in January at least. So anyway, that is all for Napoli. And of course, we now have Tottenham on Sunday, which is a really big game for top 4 reasons. Again, I will share my screen here. So looking at the league table right now, we are in 9th with a 4-4-4 record. Here we have it here. There we go. So you should be able to see that in a second or two. There we go. Cool. So yeah, a really good test for us. Tottenham in 3rd right now on 26 points with 13 matches played, 8 wins, 3 defeats, 2 draws. I think we've all spoken about Tottenham this season, about a different side of Tottenham, because we've all seen them over the last 5, 6, 7 years under Pochettino, where they should have won something. In the years they finished second to Leicester City and to Chelsea. I think there was that stat where over 2 calendar years, Tottenham finished top at the end of both calendar years, but came away with no league titles. But even if you look at them in the cup competitions in Europe, they arguably easily should have won something. Never did. And then, of course, they chopped and changed a lot, had Jose, sacked him, which was obviously the right decision because they weren't doing well in the league and not qualifying for the Champions League. Even though the timing of that sacking was bizarre when they sacked him a week before their Carabao Cup final against Man City, and it was obviously a dumb decision because had he been charged, then Tottenham, I'm not saying they would have won it, but they obviously would have had a much better chance than with Ryan Mason in charge. And then Nuno was a failure from the get-go. I feel for him, really. Obviously, it didn't. I think he was set up to fail, really, and didn't work out. And then, of course, now they got Conte. Did well, obviously, when he came in, got them fourth, and whilst the style of play wasn't brilliant, the results were very good, and some of the performances were fantastic. The likes of Kulusevski coming in made a big impact. Son was outstanding. Kane goes back to his best self. Rodrigo, Bentancur in midfield was really, really good. Højbjerg alongside him. And then going into this season, I think, myself included, I actually expected Tottenham to be challenging for the title. Of course, people always mention the fact they've not won anything in about 15 years or something, 14 years. And of course that they got that curse, that trophy curse. But given how they finished last season, given the players that they've got and kept over the summer, and the acquisitions they made over the summer with Richarlison, Basuma, Perisic, a couple of others as well, Clement Longley, I did expect them to be challenging for the title. And whilst the league table does show that, they're only 5 points behind Arsenal, which is, not a big gap. It's easily, they can easily claw it closer. It's the style of play that's obviously the biggest question. And I think out of the 13 matches they've played so far, I actually don't think they've played well in any single one of them. I know they had that big win against Leicester City, but until Son came on, it was 3-2 with 10-15 minutes to go. And in that period between 3-2 and then Son coming on and getting that quick fire hat-trick, Leicester had 2 or 3 really good chances to make it 3-3, and Lloris made some really, really good saves. And then you look at the 3 defeats they've had this season, and you look at 3 defeats they've had them to. It was quite alarming that it was to Arsenal, who of course are the league leaders and are the biggest rivals, but even bigger than that, to Newcastle and to Manchester United, who are of course very close to them. Only 3 points separate those 3 sides. And you look at the manner of those defeats. Manchester United was really, really poor. I think United were very good, but Tottenham did not help themselves at all. Newcastle, again, excellent at their ground, but Tottenham didn't help themselves and weren't at it. Even when they got back to 2-1, they never looked like scoring that second or third goal to turn it around, and Newcastle did very, very well. So whilst they've had good wins, the 3 defeats they had were against, 3 of the top 5 sides, so not great from them. And of course, I just remember Chelsea now. They were very lucky to draw that match. Chelsea were really good and should have won the game, but Kane got a late equaliser. So Spurs haven't been great. And going into the match, they've of course had a really good win in Europe. At halftime, they were out of the group and ended up finishing top thanks to Højbjerg. But that game obviously came with a price. Son has a fractured cheek now, and isn't going to play on Sunday, which is obviously big for us. A player who's done well against us in the past. I think he scored in the 1-1 draw at Anfield last season, and of course, even though he's not been as prolific this season, is still an unbelievable talent, and one who would have easily tormented us. And given how Tottenham would have set up if Son was fit, you could assume they would have parked the bus, played Kane on the halfway line, and played with Son, and whether it's Kulusevski, Lucas, or Richarlison on the other side, and try to break us on pace in the counter attack. So not having Son is big news for us and a big boost. And even then, looking at their team news, which I will share this screen now as well, if you can see that right here, which you should be able to. There is, of course, a lot of injury doubts. Richarlison has been out since picking up a calf problem against Everton and isn't going to be fit, which is again good for us because Richarlison would love to play against us, given his Everton ties. QT, which I think is Christian Romero, missed the match against Newcastle last weekend, or two weeks before rather. He returned to Sporting, but has also missed the last 2 matches. So whether he features or not will be a big thing. And if he isn't, again, a big plus for us because I think he's their best centre-back, their most physical, their most quickest, and in general, just a really good defender. Son, of course, we've talked about, isn't going to play at all, which is good. Good news for us. Obviously not good because, you never want players to be injured, even if they are against you. But hopefully he'll be back and fit for South Korea in the World Cup. Lucas Moura, a bit of a tendon issue. which again, good for us, less quality and less players to make an impact. And then Dejan Kulusevski has been with a muscle problem since the end of September, but Conte said that he's trained with Tottenham today being Friday, and then if they have a session tomorrow, and then obviously Sunday. So I think out of all those attacking options, Richarlison, Lucas, Son we know is definitely out. Kulusevski looks the likeliest to play against us, which is a big boost for them, because if you're looking at their attacking options other than Kane, there's actually not many you can think of off the top of your head. So Kulusevski, I do expect to start. I think they have to, purely because of the lack of options they do have available. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Conte pulled the rabbit out of the hat and were able to get a result. Even with, in the past, you look at last season when they drew 2-2 and 1-1, they played very deep and got us on the counter-attack on both occasions. And even at his time at Chelsea, he had some good results against us. So he knows how to play against Liverpool. He's got a way to do it, and we should never underestimate the quality he has, Conte. There's no doubt he's one of the best managers in the league, in the world even, and clearly does have an idea of how to set up against Liverpool and how to really exploit that. So in terms of their team news, that's what they've got. And for us, I will share another tab right here. I'm really glad, we've kind of moved up in the world with these streams showing a new side of it. So yeah, giving you greater detail. But yeah, for us, Jordan Henderson will be back, which is good. I know, again, from Twitter's point of view, they're probably furious, but when Henderson in the team, I'm always more happier for that leadership ability, for that running ability he can provide. Obviously, he's not done it enough this season because he's probably been quite tired, but having Henderson available is always better. And again, with our lack of midfield options, having an extra body there is always welcome. So Henderson will be available, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts. Milner will not be available because of the concussion protocols. So I think there is a protocol in place where you have to wait several days before you're allowed to be involved again with, I think, even team training. So good thing, and obviously one where it's been a big topic in football over the last couple of seasons with concussion substitutions and things like that. Looking back at the Champions League final, the one, the Karius one, he was technically diagnosed with concussion after something he suffered in the match. So it's good to see that that's being taken more seriously. Player welfare is obviously the most important thing above all of it. So Milner won't be available, which is okay. It's actually a little bit of a blow because, again, whilst we don't want to see Milner in the first team, and I obviously say that as well, he is always a person you can rely upon when you're 1-0 up with 15 minutes to go, or when you to see a game out, or change something up, because Milner will never let you down. There's a reason why he wears the number 7, and that's because he is a 7 out of 10 minimum every single time he plays. So not to have Milner was a little bit of a little bit annoying, but we've got Henderson there, we've got Thiago available, Fabinho will be available, Curtis Jones, etc., and hopefully enough options for us to really cause them problems and to get a win. So that is in terms of team news. And obviously, in terms of predicted lineup, so for us, I have no doubt, I think it will be the same back five that started against Napoli, bar one change. I think Robertson will come back in for Tsimikas. Again, no real problem with that. Robertson's been brilliant this season when he has played, and was really, really good. Even when we lost against Leeds, I thought he was actually one of our most creative players with his distribution and his crossing ability. In terms of the midfield, I again expect the midfield double pivot. I think it'll be Fabinho and Thiago. Although with that said, because Fabinho has played against Leeds and against Napoli, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Henderson came in instead for Fabinho, and it was a Hendo Thiago midfield. And again, one where I wouldn't mind it whatsoever, especially with Henderson on that right channel where he can guide Trent, guard him as well, help him out in defensive situations, and allow Trent to be more fluid going forward and being more of a threat. So with Henderson in the team, that's something that will always be a big benefit for Trent and for us going forward. Then for the midfield, attacking three. Salah on the right, I think there's no question about that. I think it'll be Firmino in the 10. And even though Elliott usually plays on the right-hand side, I do think he will play on the left. And again, similar to Curtis Jones, a player who is got a lot of potential, can do a lot of good things. I don't think he started against Napoli. But I'm just going to quickly check this, because if he didn't, then I'm almost certain he will not be play. He will be playing rather in Tottenham on Sunday. So just quickly looking at it here, lineup. So yeah, he didn't start against Napoli, which means I fully expect him to play on Sunday afternoon. And again, because of the way our lineup is, and with that front four, it's very fluid. You know, it can be a 4-2-3-1 with Salah on the right. It can be a 4-2-2 with Salah up top. With Darwin Núñez, who again I fully expect him to start and be given a run of games now until the end until the break at least, and it will give Tottenham a lot to think about. And with that back three, back five defensively, it's really important that we do kind of overload that attacking lineup, because with that front, with a midfield three that we used to play and a front three, it can be a little not underwhelming, but a bit more tougher to break down and to break down the opposition and to create clear cut chances. But with Núñez in the team, with that pace and that running power, directness, and that havoc he can cause, I expect him to trouble that Tottenham backline, with Dyer especially trying to expose his lack of pace. And then obviously with Salah in the team as well. So I think that will be the team Klopp goes for. I wouldn't be surprised if Curtis Jones were to play in on that left channel and be more like a inside left-hand left winger. I also wouldn't be surprised if we went with a diamond formation again, with Curtis on the left, Henderson on the right, and Thiago sitting in with Firmino and Salah, and Núñez as the front three forwards, central forwards rather. So it'll be very interesting from our point of view. One where I expect us to put in a good performance, because again, like we've shown this season with Liverpool, with the inconsistencies, they might not get up for the small matches, and that's why they've lost and drawn most of them. But for the games that matter, and for the results that are needed, I do expect Liverpool to put in a good display on Sunday. We've had a good recovery time as well. Well, obviously, given the season that we've had so far, recovery time is pretty much non-existent, playing every 2-3 days. But we played on Tuesday, played at home as well, which is big. So not playing until Sunday, which gives us 5 days, which is quite good. And looking at it from Tottenham's point of view as well, they've obviously had a much more intense match again at Marseille. Obviously, I think we've all seen clips of the Marseille fans lighting fireworks at Tottenham's hotel the night before, so they probably didn't have much sleep at all. And then putting in that display at the Velodrome could have taken a lot out of them physically and obviously emotionally. So hopefully we try to exploit that. We do the best we possibly can. And again, like I've mentioned in so many shows in the past, and something I'll probably continue to say in future episodes, is that we will win most matches. It's just all about how we turn up. And if we turn up with the right state of mind, with the mentality that we are not going to let the opposition get the better of us, exploit our defense, get the upper hand on our midfield, then we will win more often than not. And hopefully that will happen on Sunday afternoon. So in terms of the league table, I will quickly show that. Not on the league table. In terms of fixtures, I will quickly share the screen again. So with our rivals to finish off the show, some good games, mainly all on Sunday, in fact, because of Arsenal and Manchester United playing in the Europa League, and Newcastle being selected to play on television. So quickly, right here we go. So you should be able to see that any moment now. Here we are. So yeah, looking on Saturday, most of the rivals there aren't going to be involved. Of course, Man City, we hope that Fulham will do something, even though it'll be very, very unlikely. But hopefully Mitrovic can pull out an absolute masterclass. But I think we all expect City to win that one. And if Haaland is back, which we're actually not sure if he is, and it's quite annoying from an FPL point of view. I think all of us have him in our team but we don't know whether to keep him. He didn't play in midweek and he didn't play last Saturday. But he's still like a 75% chance of being available, which is far from ideal. And Guardiola didn't really give much detail in his press conference today. So quite annoying if he was to keep him or not. I personally will keep him. But if he is fit, I fully expect City to win that comfortably 3 or 4-0. And even if he isn't, I still think City have enough in the team. De Bruyne is playing absolutely unbelievably right now. And with the options that they still have available, they will probably be too much for them. And then, of course, on Sunday, which is where all our rivals are playing. So beginning with Chelsea and Arsenal, a really great game. London derby, of course, a fierce match. Probably Potter's biggest game Graham Potter's biggest game so far since taking charge, and one where he will need a reaction, losing 4-1 to his old club Brighton last Saturday. Excuse me. They were very, very poor, didn't play well at all, gave away terrible goals and deserved to lose. Did produce a good reaction in midweek, but being at home and the fact that I can't remember who they were playing, but I don't think it was particularly stern opposition. They were always likely to win, but it'll be a good test for them. The league leaders, Arsenal, playing unbelievably well so far, have been fortunate so far with injuries. Partey's been available for most of the season, and he's probably one of the most important players in the team. I think he's gone quite under the radar, but when Partey's available, it gives Arsenal so much more freedom to express themselves, with Xhaka especially, who is the new guy, who is an unbelievable guy right now with the way he's playing. Odegaard will be able to play a lot more, and then with Jesus, Martinelli and Saka up top, they have a lot more flexibility. So it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal will do. A game where I hope they will win, because, of course, looking at the league table, Chelsea are in 6th right now, 5 points ahead of us. So if Arsenal were to do us a favour and try and get a win, even a draw would be pretty good, then it will give us a chance to close the gap. And I think that will be a draw, most likely. I think it's quite a tough turnaround for Arsenal because they've had to play Thursday night and Sunday. Well, the first match on a Sunday and Sunday midday, which is, for me, I think early kickoffs aren't great at all. I think they're very difficult to get up for and to really set yourself because you're not really used to playing at such an early time. So hopefully Arsenal do well, get a win. Failing that, if they can get a draw, it'll still be a good result for us. Then we got Villa against Manchester United. Interesting match more than most because it'll be Unai Emery's first game in charge of the club since taking over from Steven Gerrard. One where I think we all expect Villa to lose. I think United are in a lot better mood right now, even though they finished second in the Europa League group after they played Real Sociedad on Thursday. They needed a 2-0 win to finish top and to qualify to the round of 16, but they finished second, and that means they will finish in the round of 32. So United are in a better shape, in a better mood. Ronaldo looks like he's a bit happier, at least. Bruno's playing quite well. Casemiro's now adapted to the Premier League and is showing why he's one of the best holding players, well, has been and still is in Europe and in the world. De Gea looks like he's back to his old self. Lisandro Martinez, who I think a lot of us owe him an apology. We all expected him to struggle because of that height and being the Premier League and how physical it is, but he's been brilliant for them, and I think we've got to give him a lot of credit. Dalot showed a lot of improvement as well at right back, and is definitely their first choice now ahead of Wan-Bissaka. And yeah, with Eriksen in the team as well, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, who scored last weekend against West Ham. They've got enough quality there, and I do expect Man United to win. But as to Villa, you never know how they'll turn up. I think the players will obviously want to put in a good display against United, and showing Emery that they can be good for the club in the short term and of course in the long term. So we'll see how they get on. Southampton, Newcastle, and again another top 4 rival with Newcastle. I think it's going to be a straightforward match of them. Southampton are a weird one because just looking at the league table again, they're 17th right now, but their last 2 results have actually been relatively positive. I think they, just looking at it here quickly, they lost last week against Crystal Palace, which is something you expect, but they drew against Arsenal, got a big win against Southampton, and also drew against West Ham. And that they've Doing okay in parts, and I think the biggest thing for them as well is that they've got one of the youngest squads in the Premier League. That's something that they've changed a lot this season with the likes of Gavin Bazunu in goal, Amel Bella Kotchap in defence, Joe Aribo in midfield. So they've got a lot more of a younger squad, a lot more fresher players, but of course more inexperienced. So Southampton will be fine, I think, this season, but I think with Newcastle, with how they are right now, even though they have a few problems with Joe Linton, he will be suspended, which is a big blow for them. It's quite crazy to think that Joe Linton is a big loss for them, given how he was when he first came to the club. But he's been brilliant since Eddie Howe transformed him into a ball-winning midfielder. Them not having him available, which is a big bit of a blow. St. Maximin I don't think will be available. Wilson, who is ill, but I think should start, and having him in the team is a big plus, and someone we should talk about, I think, for a second, because for me, he's actually one of England's probably most prolific finishers. If you're looking at his record when he plays, he pretty much scores every single time. So he is a fantastic striker, and having him in the team will always give you goals. And hopefully, if he can keep fit for the next couple of weeks, I don't see why he shouldn't go to Qatar with England. So I expect Newcastle to win that match quite comfortably, 2 or 3-0, and I don't think Southampton will show much of a challenge. West Ham Palace, which is the other game, and then lastly, of course, Liverpool and Spurs. So hopefully we get the result that we need, the result that will put us, if we were to win, would give us also our first away win of the season. That's something that has gone under the radar a little bit. We've not won in the Premier League since May, beating Southampton in the penultimate match of last season. And then, of course, this season, draw to Everton away, Fulham, losing to United and Arsenal, and Nottingham Forest. So it will be a really big result for us to get our first away win of the season, a big morale boost. And in terms of the league table, it could put us as high as 7th, depending on results, depending on how Fulham and Brighton do in their matches. And again, even though right now the league table doesn't matter, because when the World Cup does start and the matches do end, there will still be 20 plus league matches to go in the second half of the season, and something that will match the league table when that comes around. So hopefully we get the result tomorrow and on Sunday again, and it will be a much more pleasant afternoon, and hopefully a stress-free one too. But anyways, that is all we've got for today. Hope you all enjoyed this show. We will, of course, be back early next week to talk about this match and talk about briefly the Carabao Cup game against Derby County, one that I don't think many of us can really care about, and something that I mentioned earlier about if we were to lose, it wouldn't be a big loss either, to really give ourselves a break in the second half of the season. But we will talk about it, and we'll talk about some of the players who could obviously feature in that game as well. So anyways, thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.